All right, so now we have to actually cut out like portions. We got to cut out eye holes, basically. So if we make a sketch on these back surfaces here, and then you want to convert and just grab these two circles, and then you go to features, extrude cut, and you cut all the way through. Boom. Now we got two eye holes. You can see the ultrasonic sensors fit perfectly in there. Also, one thing I'm noticing is if you take a section view from the front, and then let's flip this around and look at like where the ultrasonic sensor goes in. Right now we're bumping into this corner like it's really tight. So one thing that we can do, so we made a couple changes that like modified a lot. One thing that we can do to fix this a bit is where we cut off areas for the horns. So if you click this feature, it'll sort of like tell you where it was built in the left-hand side. So it's telling me this feature. So if I edit this feature, let's just bring these out a little bit and make a little bit more space to put the ultrasonic sensor in so it's not as cramped. So just cut off a little bit of less material. Boom, everything updates. Okay, let's go back to our assembly. Does this look better now? Yeah, okay. So now we have plenty of space here. You see how bad it was before? Like we were literally bumping into that corner. And now you have plenty of space to get in there to put the ultrasonic sensor in. All right, so now we're gonna jump back to our master, and it's starting to look, still looks like a duck, but it's starting to look a little more like a skull, right? So now we're gonna make the teeth. So if you imagine this is like the upper jaw, we're gonna wanna make a sketch on this surface. And I'm gonna show you a couple cool tricks here. So, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to press convert entities, and I'm going to take this bottom face, right? Then we're going to snap to it. We're going to snap to it. And I only want these two lines, so I'm going to get rid of everything else just with the trim tool. Get rid of that bottom one as well. And then I'm gonna select these two and make them construction geometry because I just want them as a reference. And then I'm gonna make this little shape here. So I'm gonna make a horizontal line, and then I'm gonna slide along this line and then come over and then slide back to our original. So we have this like little rhombus, and we're staying within the guidelines of the space we already created for the jaw. And then I'm gonna set a height dimension, and I'm going to make this 8. So I'm going to show you guys something pretty cool. This is called linear sketch pattern. So this is a great way to save yourself a lot of time. Patterning is super useful in CAD, and through this course, I think you'll be able to understand a bit more about how it works. So how it's going to work is we're going to select our 4 lines, and then we're going to create a linear sketch pattern. So what's going on here? It thinks we want to go to the right. So this, if we delete this, we got to tell it which direction that we want to go. We want to create 2 more teeth along this like edge of the jaw, right? So if we click this line, now it knows which direction to go in, but we have to tell it how many of the 4 lines that we created do we want. So I want 2. I want 2 more teeth, and then you have to tell it how far they should be equally spaced. So like the pitch between each iteration. So if we increase that, looks like 20 is too much. What about 15? All right, 15 looks pretty good. Boom. And now I want that on the other side, but I don't feel like doing all that work again. So I'm just going to make a center line. I'm going to make it construction geometry. The same workflow that I've showed you before, and I use it all the time. I'm going to select all the lines we made. I think I got an extra one in there. So I'm going to hold shift and select that to get that out of there. Now mirror about this center line. Boom. So all we had to do was make one shape, and we like barely defined it with one dimension. We just said it was like a part using edges from the geometry that already exists. All we did was define one shape, but we patterned it along this way, and then we mirrored it to the other side, and now we have 3 teeth on each side, which is pretty cool. So now if you exit that sketch, we're going to extrude this, and then we'll go back to blind. And then one cool thing, this looks kind of stupid right now, but one cool thing that you can do with a extrude is as it grows, add a chamfer. So as it grows, add like an angle that it grows at. So that's what this feature is here, or draft. So if you just keep if you make this like 10 and you just keep increasing this, let's say a depth of 10 and an angle of 20, boom, we got some teeth, all in one pretty simple feature. Control S and save. Okay, so now we're going to work on the horns, and it's sort of an advanced concept, but I'm going to try and explain it in a way that's simple to understand. So we've created sketches in 2D planes, and then we've made features to make them 3D. But there's also something called a 3D sketch, which basically means you can just like make lines or splines that aren't constricted to only or constrained to only one plane. You can bend them in 3D space and then make features around that. So I'll show you how to do it. It's not too complicated. So under sketch, there's 3D sketch. So we're going to click that, and then we're going to click spline, and we want to attach to this one point right here, right? And then we want to come off, create one more point, and then one more point, and then we're going to press escape. So it looked pretty good from the direction we were viewing at, but then when you turn it around, it's kind of like wonky in 3D space. So the way to fix this is you click on a point, and then you use show sketcher tool, and you could move it only in one direction, which is exactly what we want. So we want the horns to sort of bend. Go away. We want this to like bend behind here, and then if we click this one, hide sketcher tool, and then show sketcher tool, you could bend back. And we're sort of just like positioning this into place one direction at a time. Because the trick is, because it's not constrained to one plane, they're kind of wonky to like move around and like get exactly where you want. So this way of doing it like really helps like get the exact position that you want. So this is like close to what I want. So let's go up a bit, maybe like that. Maybe this one comes back a little more. You could just play with it. So this is the general sort of outline of what this looks like, right? And then we're gonna show the sketch, and I'm gonna turn off planes here because they're kind of in the way. And then we're gonna make a plane. So we've used the existing planes already in the model, right? Every model starts out with the front, top, and right plane, but you can also make your own new planes to build geometry off of. So we're going to do that. So we're going to make a reference geometry plane. And there's multiple ways you can build planes, and you can experiment with that to figure out all the different ways that you can build them. But one of the ways that you could do that is with one point and a spline, which is what we have. So if you click this endpoint that we made, and then you click the spline, it'll make a plane that's like perfectly perpendicular to that spline. So we're going to click OK. And then we're going to make a sketch on that plane we just made. And just trust me here. I'll explain everything in more detail in a bit. But we're going to make a center rectangle and just make it really small. Make it like that. We're going to exit out of here. And now we're going to make a loft. So if you go to features and you press loft, so basically what a loft is you have two different sketches and then you have like a bridge between the two sketches and you sort of like connect them to make this like complex shape. So it's easier if I just show you. It's kind of a weird thing to explain. So if I press this edge that we've created, or sorry, this face that we've created, and then I click the small little square sketch that we made, and then I click the guide curve, which is the bridge that connects the two sketch. It sort of shows you what's trying to happen here, right? But if I just get rid of this for a second, it's sort of already trying to predict what's going on. And the trick here is that you usually want the same amount of edges in your design between the two sketches that you're trying to connect. So this is a little bit of a an exception because you have two lines and then like this weird spline here. Usually I try to make all my profiles 4 sides. This is getting a little bit complex because this is like part of a more complex type of modeling called surfacing. But usually in surfacing, you don't want to make any surfaces. You want to make all your surfaces four lines exactly. So this is a little more complicated because this is like a spline instead of a straight edge. But that's the idea. And I could probably get away with making this like a triangle instead of a square because this one's technically 3 edges instead of 4. But it's already sort of trying to predict where, like which point should match up with the other point that is trying to bridge through. So if you can drag these green dots to like new positions, and I'll sort of like change the shape that you want. But I sort of try and match up the green points to its corresponding green points. So this is on the bottom left. So I'm going to click the bottom left circle over here. And it's already sort of doing a pretty good job of making a horn. It just doesn't know like the exact path to take. But we can tell it which path to take with this line. So then you click this line and then you press OK. And an important thing to note is that if you guys want to build more of these in your own free time, just make sure that the two sketches that you're trying to connect have to be touching your bridge curve. So your bridge curve is locked onto one of the points in one of the sketches, and then in the other one, it's the center point of the other sketch we're trying to build. So they're connected through this curve that bridges them together. And that's what makes your loft work. So this is like a little wonky looking, and you can also go back and edit this. So I'm going to change this up a bit because I don't really like the shape. I think it should be a little bit shorter maybe. So I'm going to go back to my 3D sketch and go back to my sketcher tool. Slide this down, maybe bring it over a bit. And then slide this one down. It's already giving me a preview of like what it's going to look like. Or our loft broke. What happened? Okay, so for some reason this happens, but so we built that plane that should auto update and be on this spline, but for some reason it still thinks it's over here. So if that happens, just press rebuild. Rebuild. All right, that didn't work. Maybe if we just open the plane, it'll update. Yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, that fixed itself. That looks pretty good. It's sort of doing this interesting thing that it's like twisting on itself, but that's fine. And then I want to mirror this to the other side. So we've used mirror as in the sketcher. So now we're going to use it as a feature. So you can mirror anything in CAD. You can mirror bodies, you can mirror features, you can mirror sketch components. Here we're mirroring a feature. So if you select the feature, press mirror, and then we're going to mirror about the right plane. It's asking which plane you want to mirror about. Okay, so see what happened there? Sometimes, I don't know why, but it'll be like, Oh, we don't like that. Unable to create contour geometry. Please check the loft section. But sometimes if you check geometry pattern, it's like a different type of mirror, and then it'll work. Boom. Okay. So now it's starting to look like a dragon and less like a duck. Okay. So we're almost done with the skull. And if you're with me so far, you've already learned a ton of new features about how to build geometry. So one thing that I don't like is that you have the jaw, but then there's like all this open space, right? Like, I don't want that. I basically want this surface to come down to pretty close to the bottom of the jaw. So one thing we could do is we could make a sketch and go on this plane and convert entities to get all these edges and then extrude down and do the same thing on the other side. That's kind of a lot of work. Well, if you right click here and make sure you have the direct editing tab, here comes some interesting features. So this is the move face command. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if you were working in like an engineering office, you probably shouldn't use this feature. Like, I had the equivalent of that for one of my jobs, and they would always yell at me because basically this feature is like a quick and dirty way to do things. It's not very robust, and it may lead to like some of your models breaking, but I use it all the time in my personal stuff. I think if you know how to use it, it's super powerful. But I'll show you how to use it. So basically you could just like push and pull things without creating sketches, which is awesome because it's super quick. So if you press move face and then you click this face and this face, boom, we can slide it down as much as we want. So we can bring this all the way down if we wanted. So I like about there. And then you just press check and it's done. And we just slid everything down. So let's go back for a sec. So say you wanted it to come exactly down to here. So a way that you do that is you use the measure tool and you measure this to this. And then you got to look at, it's giving you a couple of different dimensions here, right? So, what's it called? The normal distance, I think, is this purple line. So if we click the purple, so it says normal distance. If we click this and copy it, and then we go back to our move face and slide this down, and then we edit it, and then we just paste it in here and press enter. So now it's perfectly on top of the bottom of the jaw, which is what we wanted. Pretty cool feature. Just be careful because it may break, but you just have to know that you have to like go in and adjust it. But I use it all the time. I think it's useful. And then just for like cosmetic reasons, we're going to go in and chamfer the front. I think it'd be a little cool if the front of his nose got a little bit of an angle to it. So this is way too much Okay, how does that look? So he's got a little bit of a chamfer. We went 3 millimeters at 15 degrees, and you got 2 orientations. I went for this like steep one. And then one thing I want to check is if we do a section view on the right plane. Okay, so basically we took away material from here, but if we just click this edge and then flip it. So now the inside and the outside are chamfered, so this will stay at like approximately 3 millimeters. And then we get out of our section view. Boom. And then the last thing I want to show you guys is, so we still have 2 separate bodies, right? The main like skull part and then like the front nose. If you go back to direct editing, you can combine these two into one solid part, which is what we're going to do. You press this one and make sure it's on add. And now they're one piece. So we can, if you left click it and then wait a bit and then left click again, or rename tree item. I'm just going to name this skull. And then the last thing I want to do is we know that we made changes so that the ultrasonic sensor can fit, right? So it can fit within here. There's enough room for it. We checked in our assembly, but it's a little weird and it may be awkward to access. And there's no reason why this back face has to come back so far. So I'm going to move it up with move face again. I'm just going to slide this forward. How's 20 look? Okay. So one thing that I'm noticing that is happening is while our ultrasonic sensor can fit within here and it looks fine, I'm a little concerned that we won't have enough space to slide it in there because it's a little tight. So we're going to try and make a little more space. I think we moved the ultrasonic sensor up a little too much. So if we go back to a section to the right view and we float our ultrasonic sensor, make sure we can move it. Let's try moving it down just a little bit, like there. And then if we press rebuild, everything should update. As long as we didn't go below this bottom edge. Remember, your circles have to stay above this line. How does that look? That looks better. And then if we press edit component, this move face, we can keep sliding this back until we have more room to put the ultrasonic sensor in. So why don't we do that? 20. Okay. All right, so now if we look at that, that should definitely be able to sneak in there. I think that'll be very easy to place into the model. Or sorry, that'll definitely be able to fit within. We'll definitely have space to put that in there. So this is just like the nature of the game of sort of designing things. You'll like do one thing, and if you build it in a way that is easy to update, you may have to, move things around and shuffle things to get it to where you want to be. But if you build it in a way that's easy to update, like I'm showing you, your model will update and it'll make changes very, very quickly, and you'll be able to make things work just by looking at them at different angles, taking section views, and modifying and tweaking things until it works. And once again, that last step was we just created a move face. If I go back to my master, we created a move face to slide this wall back because no one's going to see the back of the skull. We just want to make sure we have enough room to put the ultrasonic sensor in there. So now we have plenty of room, and this is the headpiece. The last thing that we're going to do is we're just going to make a folder to organize all of these things into all of these features into one spot. That's okay. So what we did there was we just selected all of our features and then did add to new folder, and I'll just label this skull and saved it. Okay. So that was a lot, but if you got through this, this is probably the hardest part of the design. It's just hard because it's a head, and the dragon head is sort of an organic shape, right? And CAD software probably isn't the best thing to build like an organic shape. Like Blender would probably be better at that because you're just like pushing and pulling points, right? But we created the skull. It's a pretty complex geometry, but if you stayed with me through this, then now you should probably have a good grasp of all the different features. But we're going to work through everything else, and you'll see by the end that you're going to get a good handle of all the different tools within SolidWorks. All right, see you in the next part.